If you work in quality control at a candy factory, you know strict safety regulations come with the job. It's why you partner with Grainger. Grainger helps you find the high-quality and compliant products your business needs to inspect, detect, and help correct issues. And the sweetest part is, everyone gets a product that's as safe to eat as it is delicious. Call 1-800-GRAINGER, click Grainger.com, or just stop by. Grainger, for the ones who get it done.
If your job at a healthcare facility includes disinfecting against viruses, you know prevention is the best medicine, and maintaining healthy spaces starts with a healthy cleaning routine. Grainger's world-class supply chain helps ensure you have the quality products you need when you need them, from disinfectants and cleaning supplies to personal protective equipment, so you can help deliver a clean bill of health. Call 1-800-GRAINGER, click Grainger.com, or just stop by. Grainger, for the ones who get it done.
Hey guys, welcome back to another Weird Wednesday. I'm Ashers, and this is
Pat O.
Pat O. Something interesting happened. I was on a Facebook group, and somebody asked about conspiracies. So, of course, I'm a shameless hack and a sellout, and I plug our show to these people. And it was a very large thread of about, so far it garnered like 300 comments. Lots of people talking about different conspiracies they liked. I'm like, hey, if you like conspiracies, listen to the show sometime. We talk about them sometimes, And the first person that commented in response was somebody complaining that they couldn't even make it into 3 minutes into the show because we were just talking about our weekend. So,
okay.
and of course I had to explain to that person, well, that's usually what people like about the show is, from what I hear you guys really enjoy, kind of feeling like you're a part of the conversation and it having the personal vibe to it, and whatnot. And I kind of like that too. I mean, that was the reason why I did the show in the first place, was because I wanted a way where I didn't have to fucking be professional, where I didn't have to fucking be, boring or, educate, but I could just be me and I could just enjoy being me. And it was a way for me to connect with you guys that listen. And so I feel like having these little slices of life, can be important. Of course, when they're not, I don't tell you about every time that, I ate an apple, but, I understand. But with that being said, if you can't listen to the show because we talk about our weekend for about the first 5 to 10 minutes, then, you should probably turn it off now. So with that being said, Pat, how was your weekend?
Wow. That's you put me under some pressure now.
You better have something good to say, damn it.
Actually, well, it is the only thing I was going to talk about is kind of tied into the show and what people would come to expect from a podcast such as this. I finally finished that Judgment of the Nephilim book by Ryan Pitterson.
Oh yeah, please. Yeah.
Right. So that was something that was recommended to me via Twitter. And it took me about 2 weeks to read. It was kind of a big book, like over 400 pages, almost 500 pages. And it's a fairly well thought out scripture-based account of the Nephilim's time on Earth. And, it claims that demons are Nephilim ghosts, doesn't directly speak on the cryptid connection, but it definitely infers that there could be one. And, it kind of, I read a lot, and the books that I read, some of them are, sometimes if I'm reading like Stephen King or something that's a little bit fluffier, it's just kind of in the background and I'll go through it in about a week. And, it's something that I do as opposed to watching TV or playing video games at night after work. And then there's a book like this, which it really does kind of feel like homework. And I had to really push myself to read the whole thing. And I'm glad that I'm fucking done with it. I don't want to hear about the Nephilim. I don't want to read about the Nephilim. I immediately finished the book, and I immediately went and I ordered that tarot deck and Damien Eccles' book on magic and the occult, because I needed something like completely different.
Just to cleanse your palate, huh?
Right. Like, dude, I was raised Catholic. I still consider myself a Christian, but like some of this shit is like, and I always liked the Nephilim theories and stuff, the Book of Enoch and the Anunnaki and all that shit. I've read all the Apocrypha and like those kind of those side books and stuff. I'm familiar with all the conspiracy theories, but the good Lord has seen fit to bless me with both an above average suspension of disbelief and a grade A bullshit detector. And like my bullshit detector was just like, no. I couldn't. It was too much to read. All this stuff about fucking giants and just the way that they tie it into everything. And I don't know. It kind of, I guess. Now, granted, this is just one book and it's just one theory,
Sure.
but if you ever watch Darren Aronofsky, who's the director that did Mother and Requiem for a Dream and The Wrestler and some other Black Swan, he made he's kind of a he's done a couple religious theme movies,
Sure.
and he's the guy responsible for the Noah's Ark movie with Russell Crowe.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if you've ever seen that, but he kind of has his own take on the Watchers and the Nephilim and kind of how they tied into the pre-flood world, and I kind of dig that a little bit better, but I don't know. I don't think I want to necessarily live in this. I don't want to fully subscribe to this book's worldview about angels and giants and all kinds of shit.
So you weren't you're not into the Nephilim theory, is that what you're saying?
Oh, that the cryptids are somehow in the same.
Everything, not just cryptids, aliens, demons, ghosts.
Well,
everything.
yeah, I mean, so this book kind of ends on a cliffhanger, and sets up if he does a follow-up book, it would talk more about that, especially the alien connection, because the theory that this man puts forth is that the Nephilim were responsible for Satan trying to corrupt the human species bloodline, and that's why the angels came down and mated with the daughters of man. And they were trying to ruin that, the lineage from Adam and Eve in the garden and all that stuff. And they were defeated. Like, that's why the flood happened, was to try to purify the bloodline, but that didn't necessarily happen. There was some remnants that were left over in the land of Canaan, Canaanites, and then that's kind of how later on in the Bible, we have King David, obviously David and Goliath, and that's when they were wiped out for the most part. But then we see the prevalence of demons and familiar spirits in the Bible, and that is the ghosts of the Nephilim, and that somehow, and any tampering with mankind's genetic makeup has some kind of connection back to the Nephilim and Satan's plan to prevent Jesus's return by corrupting the bloodline of man. And obviously that kind of depend on what alien abduction accounts you believe in, at least. And I don't even know so much if this is even in the narrative now, but I know in the 80s and 90s there was a big emphasis on the alien abduction scenarios and genetic tampering and the collection of like sperm or whatever to like make hybrid humans. So you can correlate some stuff there if you believe in that shit, and like you could say, okay, well, that if this is the narrative of the Nephilim, and then we believe that this is the narrative of the alien abduction experience and all that stuff, that maybe there's a connection between these two, and that the aliens are somehow connected to that, which I've heard before too, because of the night terrors and the way that people kind of experience these abductions. Although it's and that they're not actually from outer space and stuff, that's just a deception technique, which I mean, it depends on who you want to believe. Like, somebody's lying, right? Is it the abductee that's making a bullshit claim, or is it the aliens that's telling them that they're from Alpha Centauri or some shit? You know what I mean? Which now we wouldn't necessarily believe. We'd think that they were extra dimensional, not like interstellar or something like that. So like, I don't know. It's one of those things where I'm like, you know what? I don't want to fucking think about this anymore.
It's not, I'll tell you,
there's no proof. There's nothing to hint.
Exactly.
Like, that's the thing. There's so much fucking conjecture. Like, I need something. I need something that I can give me a video.
It's all very, 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 very easy to pick apart. And, that's the problem. I understand that when you subscribe to the idea of a religion or a belief system, that it can be very scary to think about the possibilities outwardly. Because I know that there's people listening to the show that believe in the Nephilim theory, and I'm not going to knock you because you're a Christian. I don't give a shit what you believe in, to be honest with you. However, I'm just going to strongly, strongly, strongly encourage you to actually look into this stuff and not just read this crazy book and not just watch some random YouTube video on it. I mean, really dig into this stuff, because there's just absolutely no proof. And once you start chasing it, it falls apart very quickly.
Well, the one thing I will say about this book is that it quotes scripture a lot, but that doesn't necessarily mean that I was never somebody that thought that, even though, like I said, I still consider myself a Christian, I don't think that the Bible is a fucking historical textbook. You know what I mean? So the fact
Right.
that you're going to try to prove something happened in history
Right.
because you're quoting a Bible verse doesn't fucking hold up. You know what I mean? That's not irrefutable evidence.
Well,
It's just,
and a lot of people agree. I mean, most people, that follow the Bible agree that the Bible is likely the Bible that we have today is not even what was originally taught in it. The translations have gotten so fucked up. We don't even know. We don't even know what it originally said.
right.
And it's all up for interpretation. So therefore, yes, you can quote the scripture, but then look at that scripture, and not just that one piece of scripture. Look at the entire chapter. It's total. If you take it out of context, yeah, you can make anything sound like anything. But and that's something. And again, like I said, the translations over the years have just been so bad that I don't even think that whatever the Bible may have been, right, whatever it was, I don't even think we know anymore. So, there's...
Yeah, and I think another thing that was kind of weighing on my mind too, especially towards the end of the book, is that I went on the Ark encounter this summer.
Yes.
And
it was insane.
And yes, which we all I won't get into like what almost happened this weekend, but me and my son were like, do you want to go do that again? Like, fuck it, let's go. Because it was so much fun. It was so much fucking fun. But they completely
go. I mean,
oh my god, I do. I need get me out there, and like we will totally go.
I'll probably get kicked out, but like I want to go.
Don't why for what? They don't.
Because I'm gonna pee my pants laughing. I'll pee myself in the middle of the Ark.
Well, we're gonna take you to the potty beforehand. And we'll make sure, because I mean, I don't know how they expect you to react in that thing. Like, are you not supposed to laugh? Like, people, like the only, I'd say, like the reaction that I saw the most was people were just videotaping everything. Like, I was like actually reading and like, I don't know. Anyway, but it was interesting to go on that, which was a lot of money and a lot of time and a lot of effort spent to do this depiction of Noah's Ark and that whole story, and how much they glanced over the giant aspect of that, of God trying to wipe out the angel human hybrids, and the fact that giants walked the earth before then. You know what I mean?
Which was the sole purpose of the flood.
Right. And I mean, and that was very peripherally touched upon in the exhibit, that they spent a lot of time and a lot of money and a lot of thought that went into building that fucking thing.
Right.
When you spend that much time and that much money, you're spending an equal amount of thought as well. And that was a very conscious decision that they made. You want to accurately represent what you think is accurately represent the way that the Ark was built, but you don't want to accurately represent the motives for building it in the first place. Like, that to me, like, was very, very odd. And reading this book as well is like, wow, there's some people that'll go through that are that hardcore devout. The Bible is like a history book, Christians, where they're going to build a fucking replica of the Ark, and they don't even want to touch this Nephilim bullshit with a 10-foot pole.
Right. Well, that's true.
Right. Like, and that's why I'm reading this book about it, and I'm like, man, there are Christians that are really deep into this, that are really drinking the fucking Kool-Aid, that don't know anything about this stuff.
Yeah.
That really don't. My grandma probably, who was a French Catholic woman, when her whole entire life and probably didn't know shit about fucking angel giant hybrid stuff. Like, you know what I mean? So there's and she went to church back when like they delivered the mass in Latin. And didn't know anything about this. So it's so interesting to see how some people, their whole concept of Christianity, what they have going around in their head, how much it's tied into this aspect of the story,
Yeah,
and
right.
how there's other people that don't even know about it, don't even know about this aspect of the Bible and the story of creation. And then there's the people like the Ark Encounter people in the middle that know about it, know like, okay, we know that this is part of the story, but don't even want to touch it and just try to suppress it. Or maybe not suppress it, but just sweep it under the rug as like, oh, that was just colorful uses of language.
Well,
It's
and
not
that's
literally.
exactly what the issue, with organized religion is that most people just
It's a
take,
buffet. You
you
pick
just
and
take, right.
yeah,
You pick and choose. You take what you want. Just like, we'll touch on it for a second, but I really do try to keep politics out of the show. But let me tell you, just like the abortion thing, most of the people that are against abortion, that are pro-life, as they say, I prefer them as pro-birth because that's how they are these extreme Christians. Well, if God didn't want you to have that baby, he wouldn't put it in your body. Well, God himself killed a bunch of babies in his lifetime and also says that life doesn't start until you take the first breath. So technically it's not a baby until it's out of the womb and it breathes on its own. So, and it's like, but somehow they don't know that. And that's not like up for debate. That's not like misinterpretation. It's, I could quote the scripture, but I'm not even going to bother Googling it because if you're really curious, you can do that at home, folks. But that's what it says. And so, but if for some reason, then if you mention that to them, they get upset. And it's like, okay, well, I mean, you either fight through the Bible, you're doing this because you believe that the Bible tells you that you should be pro-life or you don't. And what the Bible says is that it's not life yet. So I don't, and that's an issue. Here's what I say about just any of it. Just be a good fucking person. Be a good person. Don't do anything that directly affects the lives of other people in a negative way.
right,
And if God turns you down, I mean, I just highly doubt it. If there's a God, because I say all the time, it's not my place to know what happens after I die. I'm here now. It's not up to me to know. I'm just a human living in my meat skeleton, and doing my experience here and now. And if I die and God says, "Oh nope, you have to go to hell because you didn't drink the blood of Christ or something," but meanwhile let's fucking pedophiles in because they repented and got saved. Well, fuck, I don't want to be there anyway. If that's what it takes. But I think if you're just genuinely, I think intent is important, and I think I think across the board, you find that in every single religion, not just Christianity. Most of them are just kind of set rules on how to not be an asshole. And I
right.
think that's what it's all about, is just, again, not being a bad person. And if you're not a bad person, you're going to be okay. But like I said, I don't care what you do. I don't care what you do. I don't care what you practice. I don't care what you believe in. As long as you don't infringe on me and my life or anybody else's, do what you want. So.
I always choose to look at it as, because I have my son's goes to a Catholic school, actually, well, Lutheran school, but whatever. But I try to expose my kids to religion, and even as much as I'm like very not a traditional religious person, I think it's good to have. I tend to look at it as like an operating system.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Like, you need to have. It's important to have some kind of basis, I believe, like be it Windows or Linux or DOS or iOS, whatever your operating system is. It's good to have. It's good to have something up and running when you turn the computer on, some kind of operating system installed. Now, once that operating system, once that computer's up and running, if you want to change OSs, if you want to do something different, if you want to make modifications or rewrite the programming, go right ahead. But out of the box, there should be some kind of basis there. And I believe that, like, yeah, religion is good because it gives you kind of a baseline of morality, and it gives you kind of stories and parables that you can wrap your head around and figure out the nature of the universe and some of the deeper questions. But
Sure.
it's in no way, I don't think anybody got it right. including the team
No,
I play for.
not at
Like,
all.
fuck
Well, and I
no.
mean, I think people
You know?
would be surprised to learn that my 9-year-old daughter believes in God and believes in Jesus, and that's up to her. Me and my witchy ass self. I'm doing a new moon ritual tonight, and my kid follows Christian views, and that's because that's up to her. It's not up to me to choose what feels right with her. It's
Right.
but I can educate her on all the different types, and she can pick whatever she wants, and I'll still love her just the same, and I'll still love anybody else just as much. I don't care what you do. And but I will agree that, yeah, Christianity in itself, of course, it's left a really bad taste in my mouth, because I'm, as much as I'm accepting of other people, I'm always demonized for what I do and treated badly for it. And that's not nice.
Well, those people are. There's a lot of shitheads, and I'm not going to defend it. That's not. I don't. I'm
Sure.
not the fucking
Well,
spokesman.
exactly. There
But
are a lot of shitheads, but they're not representation of every single member in that group.
right, and I think that, like, I was in church on Sunday, and I guarantee you, if there was 50 people in that room, every single one of them had a different. If you were to really, like, plug a USB cord into their brain and download the way that they think the universe works, I'm sure it's 50 different fucking viewpoints, right? Like, once again, going back to the buffet metaphor, everybody picks and chooses what they want to. You know what I mean? But I think it's important for us to realize that everybody does that. And it's when we start telling other people that they're not picking and choosing the right things, like, that's when it gets real fucked up and, like, hypocritical. And we need to watch, take a step back and say, look, just don't fuck with what people believe in. Like, if it's not hurting anybody, and unfortunately, sometimes it does, but, if it's not hurting anybody, whatever goofy shit they want to believe in, it kind of comes back to the cryptid stuff too. Like, the cryptid stuff acts like that's not a religion, but from where I'm sitting, it all looks like it is. It's just a different religion. Everyone believes in goofy shit and fucking fairy tales about this and that and the other thing. And who's to say who's is right and who's is wrong? It doesn't even matter. You know what I mean? Do these things need to be all factual things, or can they be metaphors? Can they be just stories that we use to give us a greater sense of the universe? Like, I don't know. I'm done. Let's talk. I was supposed to
No,
go see
you're
Kiss this weekend.
No, actually, you're doing a good job. My neighbors right now are infringing on me, and they have decided to just casually hang out in our shared hallway and be very, very, very loud. So, but I think they're done now, actually. So that was perfect timing.
Wonderful. Yeah, that's all I got
They
this
must be
weekend.
Christian. I don't know. That's
I'm done. I'm done. How
off your
is
soapbox. That's okay.
you got news? What's going on?
I do. I got some news. We'll get into the news there. Well, there's actually been some pretty big news, and actually it's been kind of the same things going on lately. There's been another Nessie sighting. Have you seen this? I don't know if you've seen this.
I did, and it was interesting because we were talking about this with Aaron, I think. Right?
We were just, I'm pretty sure we were. Yeah, I was talking about the record and all that.
Right.
So on actually on August 22nd, there was another I think it was the same one, that webcam sighting we had talked about. And then August 26th, a couple of days later, there was a man by the name of Benjamin Scanlon, and him and his family took the Nessie Hunter boat, which is offered by it's like, it's just a gimmicky Loch Ness, tours, whatever. And they went out to the water and they caught something on the sonar. And what they caught, they know at least the image was at least 65 feet below the water. So 65 feet down, they caught something that's roughly between the sizes of 9 feet and 13 feet long. So Benjamin Scanlon did happen to, he caught a picture of the sonar because he was right there. But now the sightings they're up to a total of 13. So because of the vastness of these different types of sightings, the website, which I had posted, and I will post it again, I think it's LochNessSightings.com or something. I'll post the link. It has a webcam. You can watch the loch 24 hours a day if you'd like, above the surface. And then it has the registry of all the sightings, throughout history. But I think that they are now not lumping all the sightings in together. What they're doing is they're counting the webcam sightings separately, because, they're honest. This is very much a science, and they understand that could be a branch just floating in the water. So I think that that technically only makes the visual sightings, or even things like the sonar imaging is counted in that. It takes them up to 8. So they're splitting them between the webcam sightings and then other reports. But yeah, there was a new Loch Ness sighting. What do you think about that one? You said you know about it. Did you see the image, the sonar image?
Yeah, it came across my Twitter feed, and I made the connection to what we were talking about with Aaron the week before.
Sure.
So
yeah, sure. No, I mean, it's, it doesn't look like a plesiosaur or anything like that, but it's something very large in the water, and they don't know what it is. So who knows what it is? So that's definitely up in the air. It just, it gives a little bit more water to the mystery. I mean, this has been something that's kind of been ramping up over the years. I mean, why is that? Is Nessie, does she move? Does she migrate? She moves away for a while, because this is way different from like 10 years ago when the rumor was that Nessie was dead. There wasn't any really sightings at the loch happening anymore. And, then ever since that, I think there was like a 2 year, which, quote me on that one, but I think there was like a 2 year break in the sightings. And then all of a sudden, there's my fucking neighbors again. I'm about to go yell at them. They're letting their goddamn kids run around crazy. Listen, if you're going to have fucking kids, control them. I'm going to get canceled.
Better yet, don't have kids.
Just don't have fucking kids, right? Just don't do it. From two parents.
We have creative solutions to getting stuck with unwanted children later on in the show, so stick around.
Stop it. That was dark, Pat, but I liked it. So anyway, so the Nessie sightings are obviously ramping up every year. There's more and more sightings. What's happening? What's going on there, Ness? What you doing? Girl, what you doing? I think it does. I think if it does exist, I think it probably moves out of the loch for whatever reason and comes back into the loch. I don't know why. Maybe mating. I don't know.
Right.
I don't know the life cycle of the Loch Ness monster, but it's interesting. So there's that. But I got more. North Dakota. About North Dakota? You ever been to North Dakota?
Fuck no.
Does anybody listen to the show? Are you from North Dakota? What the fuck goes on there? What do you guys do with your
Isn't that what is Rushmore's there? Mount Rushmore?
I have no idea. I've never been to Mount Rushmore. That's a good question. I don't know. Could be. I heard it's a lot smaller in real life. I have no idea. But anyway, North Dakota. North Dakota is offering a $40,000 reward for anybody that can give them information for an incident that took place at the Arrowhead National Wildlife Refuge. 58 pregnant cows died. And they have examined these cows, and then I think it was like something like 15 preborn calves. I don't know what that means. Do you know what a preborn calf is?
Yeah, it's like a fetus, right?
Well, that's what I would think, right? So then when I tried to look it up and really figure it out, it was saying that the fetuses they're unborn calves. I'm like, okay, well, what's the difference? Is it just stages? But okay, so the 58 pregnant cows died, but not all of their babies died? I couldn't find those details out, so okay. I don't know. But anyway, so all these pregnant cows ended up dead in one night. 58 pregnant cows died. And they've been investigating the situation, and they have ruled out any type of natural causes. They've ruled out things like poisoning and things like that. So they really don't know what happened. So they're offering $40,000 for anybody that has any information regarding this situation. Now, North Dakota also has a history of cattle mutilations. As a matter of fact, earlier in the year, there was a MUFON report about, lights being seen in the sky. And then that same night, 2 cows ended up, mutilated or whatever. So is it alien related? I don't know. Why not? Sure. I don't know. But the more and more the show goes on, the more and more, man, we really got to talk about that cattle mutilation. Huh?
Yeah, we keep threatening to do it. Keep
like
threatening to blow the lid off this thing, and we don't do it, and it keeps happening. Maybe if we got off our asses and solved this,
we might solve it, right?
Right?
We might solve it.
Think about how many cows we could save.
Listen, I don't know who all here is, if you're veterans of the show, but back when it was Ivy on the show, we We had this segment kind of, we had a joke. It was Karen on the case. We'd get Karen on the case, and Karen would contact any manager to get to the bottom of the situation. And let me tell you, we might need Karen. We might need to get Karen on the cattle mutilation case. So we might get on that. I don't know. But yeah, so that's happening. That's another thing. That's pretty much all I have for the news. I don't think I have anything else. You got anything you want to shout out or plug before we get into the topic?
Oh God, I guess Wired episode 5 dropped today, or drops this week, and unfortunately,
Yes.
the actor Michael K. Williams died on the same day. So that's kind of fucking eerie. Not that I think it has anything to do. It was just Memorial Day or Labor Day weekend. I don't think it has anything to do with our show coming out, but we definitely ended that that little experiment with a bang. So
Wow.
yeah, go check out Wired, because all 5 episodes are up now, and unfortunately, Omar just died. So
Very
that.
well, okay. All right. Wow.
Yeah, so I don't know what we're going to do about it. If we release that holiday special, it might be curtains for Robert Downey Jr. So we'll have to figure that one out.
Stop.
You know what I mean?
Well,
There's some kind of Wired death curse
Yeah, what do you
that
guys?
we haven't figured out yet.
Okay, so Pat has apparently created a death curse for the Wired cast. So
Yeah, there's strong magics at work with that podcast.
if you're curious of what it is, definitely go listen to Wired, all capital letters, exclamation point Wired. And of course that's linked. Well, I don't think it is linked below, but we'll link it below. I don't know, Pat. You control your link tree. I don't help you with that.
I don't know if it's in my link tree. It might be, because I think it's only available on Spotify, which I'm cool with. I like the fact that, much like Joe Rogan's podcast, you have to listen to it on Spotify if you want to check it out.
It shouldn't be. I don't know. Whatever. We'll talk. We'll talk about that.
It might have finally hit. iTunes, but that's it. No Clubhouse stuff coming up. It was a good weekend for Clubhouse. I was on there a lot, I feel like.
Yeah, it was a really good week for Clubhouse. You guys had the werewolf movie talk, which is great. That was a great discussion. Let me tell you, that was really, really, really good. I'm kind of sad that that's not recorded. And then Carrick St. Laurent, he's been on the show before. We've had him on here previously. He did a room about the Yeti, and I think that was it. I don't think we had any. I think maybe we had some impromptu rooms open up, but
that Yeti one was really good. I mean, it was kind of a smaller room, but they kept on talking about the Jimmy Stewart smuggling the Yeti hand story, and I was like, I had to pop in at the end and be like, "Yo, dude, that would be an awesome fucking movie."
Oh, did you pop in at the end? So like I was there, but I wasn't there. I was busy. I was muted. Like everything, like my phone was turned off. I just wanted to be there for moral support. So if anybody was talking at me, and I was a rude bitch.
No. I was, I listened. I was like, what was I doing? I think I was doing laundry or finishing the Nephilim book or whatever. But I jumped up at the end and was talking about the supposedly Jimmy Stewart, who was like an airline he was an Air Force pilot in World War II, the actor Jimmy Stewart, like Mr. Smith Goes to Washington and It's a Wonderful Life and shit. So he was a pilot, and he was over in Asia, and supposedly he smuggled some rich guy had asked him to do it, and he was flying back from Nepal or some shit, I don't know, and smuggled the Yeti hand back into the States. And it's kind of like this wild, urban legend. I don't know if you'd say urban legend, but just like crypto story. And It got referenced a couple times, and I just thought it was interesting to do like a heist movie or like a road trip movie based on smuggling this Yeti's paw across the country.
I think it would go over well. Yeah, I think people would be really into that.
So so that was it. Clubhouse is still gangbusters, so if you're not on there, get on there.
Get on there. And speaking of Clubhouse, the man who brought us the Cryptozoology Club, Jeremiah Byron, he runs the Bigfoot Society podcast. So if you're not listening to that, you absolutely should be. You can find the Bigfoot Society podcast anywhere you listen to podcasts, but he is trying to hold a special event live from the Van Meter Visitor Festival in Van Meter, Iowa. And in order to do that, he needs to hit 1,000 subscribers over on the YouTube channel. So if you could, at minimum, even if you don't listen to the show, it's just a little search and a couple of buttons. Go hit up the Bigfoot Society podcast YouTube channel. I'll link it in the description. We owe Jeremiah a lot. He's wonderful. He's done a lot to bring a lot of people together. And actually, this last week, in his last episode, he just did an interview with Aaron Dees, which we had on during the West Virginia Cryptids episode. So if you want more of Aaron, which you do, go check out the Bigfoot Society podcast interview that he did. So
post that link on the Twitter, and I'll shove that around too.
Absolutely.
He's also like, it actually makes me feel like kind of bad because he's very he does stuff on TikTok as well.
He does. Oh yeah, he's got a good TikTok game.
He's better for being a weird looking white guy, much like myself. I'm not talking shit, but he's very prolific on the social medias.
He is.
Here I am partnered with you, and you're like, I don't know what the fuck you're doing. Like, why aren't we pimping you out more? Why is this guy on TikTok and you're not? That's what I want to know. No offense. I'm just saying.
That's a really good question. I do. You know what? And I keep every day. I'm like, today's going to be the day I'm going to get on TikTok, and I keep not doing it. I don't know why.
Kenzie had something. It was, I don't want to say it was stupid, but it was like goofy. Her and her roommates goofing around. It got like 3 million fucking views.
Oh yeah. She's.
I don't know how many of that translated into like podcast plays, but I mean, still. You have a couple of those things pop, and it can't
a lot
be
of people do.
You.
I have a friend that I don't think he listens to the show. He's a really good friend though, and his name's also Pat, which is weird. But
there's a lot of us.
There's a lot of you. I guess I like Pat's a lot. Because I love that guy, I just found out that he's fucking viral on TikTok. I had no idea. It was TikTok famous, but he is, because he looks like Jesus, and he does like all these TikToks about like, I don't know, Jesus doing things. And anyway, I don't even know what it is. I don't even know what his TikTok name is. I just found out because I tried to get on there. I'm trying to figure out TikTok. I don't know how it works. So I just need to do it. I don't know. Maybe I'll get on there soon. But Jeremiah does all the stuff. You can find Bigfoot Society podcast pretty much anywhere. Instagram, TikTok, he's on Twitter, he's on YouTube, it's everywhere. So go check out his stuff. But I think that's all I had for plugging. Let's talk about this episode. So
sure.
Viewer discretion is advised.
Yeah, it's an icky one.
Ooh, it's hard. And it was really hard to research, not just because I put too much on my plate, but because it's hard. It's a very difficult topic, and it's going to get dark, and it's going to get hard to listen to at parts. If, obviously, again, you see the title, you kind of know what to expect here. And if you don't, and you're not okay with talking about things like murder and gruesome murders and brutality and child abuse and child murder and things like that, you probably shouldn't listen to this one. Skip this one. Go listen to the Great Flood episode again, or go listen to the Jersey Devil. So something else that's hot and happening, but not this one, or just we'll see you next week. But that was my disclaimer. I think that was pretty good. So on with it. So last episode, we had a fun time talking about video game conspiracies and things like that. We kind of opened up the void a little bit, and we discussed something that is very popular amongst the kids called Sad Satan, which is a dark web video game that is just intentionally made to make you feel like a piece of shit. I don't know. It's just not a good deal, but, so with that was kind of the teaser for what we're doing here. And, of course we're going to talk about, basically murder on film pretty much, and then some. So I'm sure that a lot of people here are vaguely familiar with what the deep web is. Now, the deep web is basically like an anonymous source that goes below. It's basically anything that you can't Google. There's a whole nother network of all these websites and all these things that you can kind of tap into if you do some very special things with your computer. Now, I'm not going to tell you how to do those things because I don't want you to find or even search for a lot of the stuff. And not because what I'm telling you is bullshit, but because a lot of it is illegal. And not just that, a lot of it, there's a lot of things, once you see it, you can't unsee. And, that's kind of what we're going to get into. But a part of the deep web is what's known as the dark web. And the dark web houses, again, the most extreme of extreme. I'd say it's about 90% child porn. That's pretty much what it's for. Is for sharing, child porn and things like that. But there's some other stuff too. It's not all bad. The deep web's a very mysterious thing that people paint in a very bad light. It's not all bad. People that live in other countries like China, or or Korea or things like that, they use it because they have a lot of censorship and they can't access websites normally. So the deep web itself is not a terrible resource. It does have its place, but that's a precursor to that. But before we get into the modern day stuff, let's talk about snuff films. Pat, what do you know about snuff films?
Wow. I mean,
I know I talked a lot.
The movie 8mm. I kind of dropped that one in my lap. Snuff films. Yeah, I guess it's something that I've never seen one myself, if not counting like maybe execution videos on E-Bombs World, which maybe fit in that category. I mean, if you look at when E-Bombs World and kind of the internet started, the first like major era of, well, I don't know how to describe it, but early 2000s, kind of the internet existed. Obviously, I feel like nobody really had the internet before 1992, right? Like, yes, there was, it existed in some capacity, but there was no AOL, there was no Prodigy, there was no CompuServe. And then those things existed from the early mid 90s until the 2000s. But then post 2000 was when you saw more and more people, because no one knew how to make this shit. You saw more and more people understand how web design worked. You saw more websites pop up. You saw movie sites. You saw all this shit, IMDb. And 2000 on is kind of like this golden era of the internet. And if you look at what was going on in our country at the time, we had, the 9/11 and then, all that stuff and going over to the Middle East and fighting with the Taliban and all, which is going on. And I feel like there was a lot of content that was people in third world countries suffering the effects of that war. There was a lot of like, guy gets his arm blown off by a fucking Scud missile or some shit. I don't know. And I was in a band with a guy that like would just sit there. He was unemployed, and like we go to band practice, and I'd be like, "What'd you do today?" And he just basically went on the internet and like found all this shit.
Yeah.
And I don't know if it would be considered deep web. Then it was E-Bombs World, and either that makes sense to you or it doesn't. And if it doesn't, Google it. But it was, that stuff was out there, and it was out there kind of hand in hand with blowjob porn, and incorrectly labeled fish live concert sets, and bootleg computer games and all this stuff just was kind of available. And that was just a part of the internet back then. Now, when you talk about the kind of stuff that we're going to be spending the show talking about today, and like stuff that's kind of made, stuff like from like the Serbian film or like Hostel, like shit like that. I don't know. I just hope that stuff isn't real.
Okay. So, well, we're gonna take a break and kind of backtrack just a little bit. So, I wanted to bring up snuff films because that's basically what's kind of what we're talking about. So a snuff film has a very specific criteria, or had a very specific criteria for so long. It was basically a somebody filming somebody being murdered, and that being the main objective is to then distribute that murder to a lot of people. And, to make money, right? To sell it off to people that have, these sick fetishes that are also murderers and want to see this stuff. But the term snuff really got large, actually, with the Manson family, because there was a rumor that the Manson family had, filmed their stuff, and that they were passing it around from person to person. It was actually one of the people in the family claimed that this film that, these films that they made were being passed around from person to person. You also had other killers like Leonard Lake and Charles Ng, who would record them. They would go and rape and murder these women, torture them or whatever. They would film that stuff. But they never really distributed it to anybody. They just kind of kept it for themselves. And there's tons of people that have filmed themselves doing things to people, but not to put it out there to anybody, but just because they wanted to relive it, or what have you. It doesn't matter. But the term snuff kind of started going out to the media a little bit because people were hearing it, and of course we talked about the Manson family to a great extent. That was a big deal. But then we kind of started having this age of exploitation film. And I think we even talked about it recently on the show, because I was talking about how I did that review over on the Bloody Bitch Horror Show of Cannibal Holocaust. The director was arrested and he was charged with murder. He wasn't charged with murder. He wasn't convicted of murder, but he was charged with murder, because they presented Cannibal Holocaust like, look, this is real. This happened. This is really some naked chick that we impaled on a pole, and made all the actors and stuff go into hiding. It was the Blair Witch before the Blair Witch was the Blair Witch. But and that was a big deal. That got a lot of people talking. And then we had things like Faces of Death come into play, where everybody's like, oh my God, this is real death. This is all legit. Which, we now know that Faces of Death is basically just, news footage and also a mix of, fake scenes and stuff like that. Like, believe it or not, if you've seen Faces of Death, when they bash that monkey's brains in and eat it, that's not real. That's not a real, it's just really good special effects.
Really? Even the monkey? I figured that stuff was real. Oh.
It's not real. Yeah, I know. And so super disappointing. But it's not. So there's that. Plus multiple. I mean, the deeper you get into the Faces of Death, if you start watching all of them, like number 4 is just absolutely fucking ridiculous. Like, there's a part where they're like talking about the Yemen Dog Meat Festival, and they're like slicing up a puppy or whatever, and like they're holding the puppy, and then like in the next shot you see them cutting into the puppy, and it's very obviously a stuffed animal. Like, the puppy doesn't react at all, and it's supposed to be live. And anyway, you've got other things like the Banned on Television series, which is also like kind of more like a compilation of again, just news footage, bad car accidents, people jumping off of buildings, executions, autopsies, things like that. But none of that stuff, even the real stuff in Faces of Death, none of that stuff was filmed specifically because of it's a kink. Other people might want to watch it, and they are selling it. All they did was compile footage and packaged it and claimed it to be a documentary. That doesn't really qualify as snuff. But then you had all this stuff going on, and then you had the invention of the internet. Some people here might be familiar. I think we've talked about it on the show before. I was a big fan of Rotten.com. I loved me some Rotten. I'd go there every day to check out the new stuff. I had a weird childhood. But I know about these sites. I know about Emo Mom's World. I know about Best Gore. I know about Documenting Reality. I know about these things. And even this day, I will partake in a little bit of gore here and there. People have seen it. I've seen it all. I've seen the cartel videos and the beheadings, and I've seen it. I've seen the crime scene photos. But again, none of that is considered still snuff. None of it is done and documented and pushed out there in order to facilitate some type of ring of people that are all sharing some type of fantasy or fetish or what have you. So now that we've kind of established what that is, let's kind of continue, and we'll circle back to snuff in a little bit, but not yet. So I'm dying. So we have now entered the age of the internet, and now people have this deep web, dark web kind of situation going on. Now, especially with the invention and introduction of Bitcoin, the new snuff film is actually, we call them red rooms. And if you don't know, a red room is a pay-to-play situation. It's like you are secretly invited. It's a super top secret, of course, live stream where there's typically one person that is the victim and one person that's basically the not the facilitator, I guess facilitator. And you get to put up money, and a lot of money, big money, in order to be a hand in this person's torture and eventual death. And, again, this is live streamed out to all of you who pay to watch it. You can be a spectator, or depending on how much money you have, you can actually participate in this situation. I'll break. I'll let you interject before I continue. What you got to say about red rooms, Pat? Or Snuff? Everything to say about Snuff?
No, I mean, everything I looked up said that they weren't real. Uh-oh. Did you guys hear that?
I'm still here.
Okay. Did you hear that though?
No.
I was Googling something and a video came up. I was actually Googling something about red rooms. Everything I read said that they weren't real. I don't know why that, but if you look at the Peter Scully story, like obviously they are, because that's kind of what that situation was. I think there's always going to be some debate about the level of organization that there is. There might be a tendency on your average person to believe that this kind of stuff is more organized than possibly it is. And then on the other hand, you could have the authorities trying to convince the public that it's less organized than it actually is, right?
Sure.
Because the idea of there being this massive network that's using the internet the secret internet that you don't even know about to transmit this kind of stuff, and that it's happening in rooms and basements all over the country, and that people in Germany are watching somebody in Connecticut get their fucking balls dipped in acid or something. That that's some heavy shit, man. And it kind of makes the common man common person afraid of what's going on behind every closed door. And I don't want to live in that kind of world. The police don't want us to live in that kind of world, and the people that are doing this stuff definitely don't want us to live in that kind of world. So there could be a concerted effort to downplay whether or not these things exist or not.
Sure.
On the other hand, maybe they really don't. Maybe this is really not saying that it doesn't in some capacity, anywhere, but it's not, this stuff isn't going on as much as urban legends might lead us to believe. And that this kind of ties into the moral panic that we talked about on other episodes, where we think that there's this organized cabal of kitty diddlers, that are all Democrats in Hollywood or raping kids in pizza basements and shit. I don't know, whatever. It's
Sure.
It's one of those things where, well, we don't know, and that's
right.
That's the reality of the situation, is that we don't know. And as long as, and the thing about the deep web is that the reason it's the deep web is because we don't really know what goes on there either. And if the common man, if everybody had a really good handle of what was going on there to the fullest extent, then it really wouldn't be the deep web now, would it?
Right. Well, exactly.
So yeah, there's a lot of variables here. There's a lot of question marks, and it's just a matter of what kind of world, when you close your eyes at night, what kind of world do you want to think that you live in?
Well, that's true, because again, a lot of people, there are a ton of people, just like we were talking about with the Christians that don't even know anything about Nephilim. There's a lot of people in the world that have no idea that this side of the world even exists.
Sure.
And
I would choose, I know human nature. I know that to some extent it does, but I don't want to think that it's the epidemic that people can get carried away into thinking that it is.
I don't think it is, personally. I don't think that it's as large as people is, but I'm sorry, I don't think it's as large as people think it is, but I do believe that it is large enough to where we do need to have awareness, because it's not as rare as people think it is either. And that's a difficult line, that's a difficult line to walk. Now, do people need to know all of the nitty-gritty details about these situations? Absolutely not. But if you want to learn about them, there's plenty of ways to learn about them. Now, regarding red rooms, the reason why I brought up snuff films was because there was never any proof that there was a snuff film. Again, the stuff that I had mentioned, Faces of Death, Documenting Reality, those things weren't snuff. And sorry, I'm getting attacked by my cat. He won't leave me alone. I just got pussy all over me. But anyway, um, so red rooms are also they're kind of falling into that same sort of style. It's something that we talked about. It's something that's possible, but you're right. We don't know everything that goes on, so therefore it could. Now, one of the big arguments that I hear against red rooms is that you can't really live stream from on the deep web or the dark web.
Right. That's one of the things that I saw pretty early on into my internet sleuthing, and kind of made me feel a little bit relieved that there's
Right.
not enough bandwidth to be streaming this kind of stuff. Which,
Right, because nobody wants something like that to happen, right? Nobody wants to know that we live in a world where you could fall victim to something like this, or anybody for that matter, because it's cruel and it's disgusting. And I mean, just can you fucking imagine? It's horrible.
I will say that it coincidentally enough, this was a plot line of this week's American Horror Stories episode.
It was totally not planned. We did not know
Right.
what American Horror Story. We did not talk to them, and they don't sponsor us. They
Yeah,
can.
Ryan Murphy has not been in my kitchen, unfortunately.
I know.
The invite is open at
Yeah.
any time. And Ryan Murphy, please come on by. I'm a fan of all your work. We are both extremely horny individuals, and I would love to collaborate with you. But yeah, this season is about vampires in Maine. It's kind of a knockoff of Salem's Lot, and what the vampires do is they find like shady Craigslist listings of people that are like crackheads or trying to sell like stolen bikes or whatever, and then they'll go over there and they'll eat them, right? And this one guy goes over to this house to buy, it's a shady Craigslist listing, and ends up being jumped by the people he's there to kill, and they attempt to rosebud him, which is kind of, you know what that is?
No,
It's
I
where
don't know what that
you
is.
turn someone's butthole from an innie into an
Oh,
outie.
I know about that. Yeah. I know
Okay.
about that.
So yeah, and they're gonna be streaming it over the web to people that pay a lot of money for this stuff. And yeah, I mean, it's basically a red room situation that you're talking about right now. And of course, the guy ends up being a vampire and he fucking murders these people. But yeah, it was super interesting because I was like, I just watched, and it was a throwaway because I don't know how familiar you are with American Horror Stories, but their seasons are very much kitchen sink, where like they throw in all kinds of shit, and this was something that they chose to touch upon this season.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, so that's strange that happened that way. But life is very strange sometimes. But so that is the first argument against red rooms, and of course the fact that we've never found any. All kinds of websites will pop up on the deep web where there'll be like a counter and it's really cryptic and it's like, oh, come back here in 5 days and make sure you pay your money now, and then nothing ever happens. It reaches zero. Typically they actually start back over. And there's some people that believe that some of these websites are connected to the same person. It's just a scam in order to get your money. Because again, it's very, very expensive. So I mentioned, typically they only take Bitcoin payment. Bitcoin is huge, huge on the deep web. And or probably all kinds of cryptocurrency now, which is not, cryptocurrency is not what Bigfoot takes, I found out.
Oh! Jesus, did you? Ashley, don't hurt yourself, baby. Oh, you leave that stuff for me. You don't sully your pretty little red head with that. You don't reduce yourself to that. No, baby.
Listen, this is heavy stuff, and it's getting ready to get really bad. So we need a little bit of comic relief in between.
Oh, well, you just.
So there you go.
Oh my God. Oh.
I said what I said. Here we are. So anyway, which will, I would like to do an episode covering other things about the deep web, and we'll do that. But let's get this really, really hard stuff out of the way first. But yeah, Bitcoin is really, really popular over there. And as we know, Bitcoin is expensive now. It's worth a lot of money. So of course it's expensive to watch somebody die. And participate. But again, we didn't really have any proof of this happening or anything like it happening until as you've read in the title here, probably, or at least the description, Peter Scully came along. And when this happened, nobody really took it seriously. So Peter Scully actually is a man who ran a big ring, a big child. It was mostly child porn ring that, he branded under the name of, I think it was No Limits Fun or something like that. And a video started going around, not just on the deep web, the dark web, not just there, but it had made its way onto the surface web, titled Daisy's Destruction. And Daisy's Destruction is basically a horrible, torturous, terrible event that took place where they filmed 3 children, one as young as 18 months was the youngest, and different horrific acts that were performed on these kids. I'm going to tell you right now, do not go and watch this. For one, don't go and watch it because that's disgusting, and I can't imagine why you would want to see something like that. But for 2, if you do, you will be in possession of child pornography, and you will go to jail. And so don't. And there,
well, so I completely agree. But it sounds like he was selling this video for $10,000 a pop.
He was, yeah, he was.
So I mean,
initially he was.
Granted, I'm not. I have no intention of even Googling those 2 words at the same time. For fear that it's going to put me on some kind of list that I'm probably already...
and it very well could.
Right, but I mean, do you think that there's copies of this floating around, or do you think that look, anybody that had it paid for it, they're not going to fucking give it away?
Yeah, so there are copies of it floating around.
Oh Jesus!
I know this because not just because of I do my research, but again, like I said, I partake in gore sites, and Peter Scully's name is brought up all the time because Peter Scully is like the prime example of, look, this stuff is real. We've been saying it all these years and it's real. And here's our proof, his name does get dropped. People want to watch the video, just that. And I don't think it's because necessarily that they are pedophiles. I think it's just because they're still skeptical that it exists, and it's morbid curiosity, and they will share it around again, right on the surface web. Right on fucking Facebook, they'll share this shit around. Now, they won't share it, like post it as a video. They'll be like, send me a DM. I have it. If you want it, send me a DM. I'll send it to you. It's still out there. And so it will be forever. It's the internet. It goes on forever.
I wanted to bring that up because that is something that my mind kept going to. And I didn't know if it was me trying to convince myself that these people don't exist. Like, do you think how much of the people that view this stuff, how much of the people that buy this stuff, how much of the people that make this stuff genuinely do it because they are just pushing boundaries? Or how many people do you think they're getting sexual gratification from this?
Well, so that's really interesting that you bring that up, because I'm not going to say, but it is interesting that you bring that up. That's something that I've definitely looked into. Is it a matter of them actually enjoying the act itself, or is it because they are they're a paraphile, and so therefore they're so deviant that they get off on not the act but pushing the boundaries of what's acceptable and what's not, pushing that taboo and continuing to push it back and back and back. I don't know, but what I will say is that either one of those people, whether it's because they genuinely enjoy it or because they enjoy pushing the goalpost, are very, very, very dangerous. And I'm just going to be honest, I've got no hope for them. And I think that we need to either put them all on an island somewhere and let them fend for themselves, or just execute them immedially. So I don't have very good...
But it sounds like some of them already have islands, unfortunately.
Exactly. Well, that's another thing, right? Peter Scully was not, he was living pretty large. He was doing well.
Right. There's a lot of money in it.
He had lots of money. Yes.
That's the other thing too, is when you're talking about that much money to be made, people do a lot more crazier shit for a lot less. You're making a video that with very little overhead. I mean, I guess you got to kidnap the kids, but once you figure that part out of it, $10,000 a copy. I mean,
yeah, per copy.
That's
And the thing is that people were buying it. So who the fuck are these people that got $10,000 laying around that they can just drop on child porn?
Rich motherfuckers, and that's
horrifying.
The problem.
It's horrifying.
Yeah.
And these are people that are in of high authority. They're the rich motherfuckers, and rich motherfuckers usually are in control of shit. So It is
Right.
scary. It
So
is
you look
scary.
at it and you say, who's the more deviant in this situation? Is it the people that are creating it out of necessity because they need the money, or is it the people with the money that are paying people to make it for them? Or is it a symbiotic relationship where you have these like degenerate weird fucks in the basements that want to do this shit anyway, and they're like, well, I'm just going to do this and then I'm going
Well,
to get paid for it. It's a win-win situation for me. And
right.
then you have the rich motherfuckers over here that are paying $10,000 a download, and they're saying, I don't have to get my hands dirty, I can just buy this remotely and get the video, and then I can watch the video and I can see a child be destroyed because that's what I'm into, I guess, you know.
Or whatever.
and
I
and
mean,
that's
yeah.
yeah, that's the thing, is that like this is so far, like I'm not even really like into BDSM that much, so like this is so far beyond something that I could conceptualize that I might completely miss the point of like why these people are doing this. Like I almost tend to adopt the viewpoint of either this isn't real or it's done from some kind of macabre anthropological, I just want to push boundaries in society and I want to see shit that I can't see, rather than, there's this like, bunch of naked stockbrokers jerking off like to this stuff, because I can't imagine anyone deriving kind of sexual pleasure from
Yeah,
this.
no, I agree. And so, but I guess that's the difference between, us people who aren't pedophiles and people that are, I guess, is that, I don't know. I don't know what goes on in their head. I'm not interested to find out. I just know that they typically reoffend all the time, and there's really not much hope for those people. So, to be honest with you, and
Right.
that's kind of where it ends there. It's that for whatever reason, the chemicals in their brain fucked up, and they're better off not here. They're better off underground, and that's I know that probably sounds pretty harsh, but I don't know, fuck them. So I don't know, but so Peter Scully comes along. He actually got caught. Not he wasn't caught because he was distributing this video, and they caught him. They caught him on like fucking tax evasion or fucking some shit. Who knows? There's something about money and shit. So it wasn't even the fact that he was making child porn that ultimately got him in prison. It was something about money that did, and that's I don't know if that's worse, or you know what, because then what if he wouldn't have done the money laundering? I don't even know what he was doing. I don't care. If he wasn't doing that though, he would have just continued to do this and nobody would have said shit about it. I mean, is that how this would have gone? Because that's the thing, is that also with this case, there's a lot of information that is like super secretive. Like there's a lot that we don't know, and it's strange, because it's like, well, okay, he was making these videos, and that's another thing. One of the girls that was in Daisy's destruction, it was an 11-year-old girl, and she was actually she died. She was strangled to death, and he filmed it. He filmed that. So we're under the impression that he also sold that to people. It's not just Daisy's destruction that he did. Rumor has it that this was big business. Again, it was branded under a production company. So what else is out there? Nobody really knows the answer to that. And who the fuck was buying it? Has he just not talked and said? But he admitted that he strangled her and filmed it. He admitted to
Well,
that.
he might not have known exactly who was buying all the copies of it, because it sounds like, the deep web being what the deep web is, there's a certain amount of anonymity that these people utilize. So he might not have known, and they don't have, with them not having tracking the same way we do with IP addresses on the regular
Mhm.
web, but here's what we do know about these people is that they are clandestine and well financed, which
Absolutely.
is, one of those things where I don't know, man. It whenever you hear stories like this, you know, you realize that for the good guys to keep up, they need to increase their surveillance abilities. And when they increase their surveillance abilities, then you look at like, oh, is the government spying on everything we do? And it's just this like balloons into such bigger of a conversation. Um, because like
Well,
not to get super into it, but like we've both like heard of cases like this, and you don't usually get a lot of answers. They're always very secretive about stuff. It's for a lot of different reasons. It's because, how are they catching these people? How are they tracing things through a potentially untraceable network, right? Where does the money go? Who's actually buying this? Who's selling it? Who are the people involved? They're never poor people. They're always rich business owners, because who has access to this kind of capital, this kind of disposable income for this shit? You know what I mean? So you have the people that are producing it on one end, yeah, and they might be more blue collar, but the customers are always, white collar business owners or people with access to money or something. So it's just like, it's always kept kind of in the quiet, and maybe they don't want to cause a panic, maybe they don't want to exactly reveal their methods, but the police don't. you know I really wish you saw this stuff in the news more, like the
And you
cases that, like,
should. Yeah, you should. I
the
mean, like,
cases that I'm sorry, go on.
I was just saying the Peter Scully thing. I mean, that's big news, but that's not big news like it's international. It's like it's international news. It wasn't on my local news when it happened. It probably wasn't on yours, but it's big because the internet's big. And again, they're chasing this legend, and we kind of finally had proof of it. And everybody's like, "Oh, look, it happened. This is real." And but it's still not. Again, it's not really talked about. Now I understand what you're saying. We're not going to know the methods because they can't give away the methods. I get that. But at the end of a trial, which I'll be honest with you, I don't even think his trial has completed. I don't know.
Well, no, the evidence was all destroyed.
Right. And that's
Yeah.
strange because typically they release, well, you said you don't hear about this stuff. Sure. But in any criminal case, at least in the United States, and maybe that's what's different, is that it wasn't in the United States that this happened. But in the United States, whenever a criminal case is done, you get free access to the discovery, which is all of the evidence. And we didn't get any of that. So there's this rumor going around that, Peter Scully has, of course, worse and worse and worse. And it's like that with serial killers. You get a serial killer and they're like, oh, they were convicted of killing 50 people, but realistically they killed 300 people, and it's like, well, we don't really know. So, we'd never know what's real and what's not technically. We just know what we had evidence of. So with this, there's like a rumor going around that, there's a different video that involves babies, and I'm not going to go into the detail of what. It sounds pretty ridiculous because at one point they're having a pillow fight with the babies' bodies, which is sick, but I guess if you feel like you're invincible, I guess you would do some sick shit like that. I don't know. But people question a lot whether or not that's even a real video, if it's out there. And did he make it? And then of course, the original point of this was, kind of the Red Room angle. What did he stream this stuff? Because a lot of people say that he did host these pay to play streams, and it seems like there might be some truth to that. So if he found a way, again, the first piece of evidence that you get when you look up Red Rooms is that it's not possible for you to stream this stuff. But if he did, then obviously it is possible. Then what does that mean? How much deeper does this go?
Well, or it's not. Maybe it's he could have streamed it through a different service. Maybe it could have been hosted through fucking Skype. I mean, who knows?
Sure,
Like,
it could have been.
it could have been a fucking FaceTime video. It could have been a Google Hangouts, and maybe that, that they don't want to cause that panic. They don't want that kind of bad branding. Because if you had to pick between, if it was revealed that someone was using Skype for this kind of stuff,
That'd be a big deal.
or Zoom, right? And it's like, well, which service are you going to use? Which service is your company going to patronize? The one that child molesters use, or the other one, right?
Well, and it's not fair that we don't have the transparency to these kinds of things because, again, there's so many questions still left on the table that aren't answered, but then they're just like, well, we know that it's worse than just this. And it's like, oh, well, then how bad is it?
Well, yeah, and that's the thing, is that we're all creative people, so we come up with we either potentially come up with stories, this goes back to what I said earlier, that are worse than what it really is, or we don't know the fucking half of it.
Well, because like in the case of like this other potential video, that's what Daisy's destruction started as, was just a rumor. That couldn't exist. That sounds so ridiculous. Who could do that to children? But guess what? It was real. So it's like, oh, okay. Well, I suppose maybe, then that opens up the possibilities to these things, and maybe they do exist. But I do want to talk about another case. a different case that is very public. Everybody knew about it. Do you have anything else to add about the Peter Scully situation
Not
specific?
specifically. I
Okay,
got some overall
sure.
statements that I'll make at the
Sure.
end. Please
So,
continue.
and we'll get there. So, remember how I said we would circle back to snuff films?
Sure.
Well, it happened. One of the first, actually, the first snuff film that we know of to date did come out, and it ended up being not exactly, I guess, how we expected a snuff film to surface, but that it falls into the criteria of exactly what it was. So I don't know if you've heard of this. Other people may have, and I don't. You might have, Pat. I think we've kind of talked about it before. One lunatic, one ice pick. You know about that one?
Vaguely familiar, but please enlighten myself and the
Sure.
audience.
Sure. So a video surfaced on, actually, I think it was on Best Gore, and it was titled "One Lunatic, One Ice Pick," and it's very, very graphic. You can watch the whole thing. These are adults. It's not illegal for you to watch it if you really want to watch it. But again, once you look into the void, it looks back at you. So at your own risk, do your thing. But and it basically shows this guy in like a morph suit, and he's on top of another guy laying on a bed, and he stabs him with like this makeshift ice pick thing. To me, it looks more like a screwdriver. And it does horrific things to the corpse. There's cannibalism, there's necrophilia. It's hardcore. It's hardcore. And some people might recognize this case specifically. If you didn't know, if the name didn't immediately jump out at you, you've probably heard about it on the Netflix hit show "Don't Fuck with Cats."
I did watch that show, actually.
Yeah. And so Luca, this is Luca Magnotta was the ice pick wielder. And here's the thing about Luca Magnotta. Okay,
started off with cats.
Where he started off torturing, I guess it was mostly, I think it was always cats. He did like 3 videos of him killing cats in horrific ways and put them out there. And Luca was very attention seeing in general.
Yes.
And so
oh my God, what a case.
It is a case. As a matter of fact, I didn't know if I was ready for this or not because I already do so much. But you know what? Fuck it. It's 2021 and we're doing stuff. I have an entire script written on this guy to do a formal YouTube video to explain the case and what happened there. So if you're subscribed to the From the Ashes YouTube channel, one of these days, I'm not going to say when, but one of these days that will be on there. As well as, so I'll be doing, a lot like the show, but more in depth, true crime.
Yeah, watch the Netflix show though, because the chick that helped crack that case, she's not too bad looking for a thick internet woman. She is right up my fucking alley.
The whole group of people are so goddamn impressive. The way this all went down by just random fucking people on the internet was beautiful. It really was a beautiful moment. Horrific events, but beautiful. They were onto this guy. They found this guy was torturing cats on the internet. You can't do that shit. So they were tracking this motherfucker down, and they kept telling authorities, "Listen, it's gonna get worse. It's gonna get worse." They had him pegged, and it did get worse with One Lunatic, One Ice Pick, and again, everything bad that you can think of in one video, it's in there. I mean, you can't find fucking necrophilia anywhere else except for maybe the dark web, maybe. It's just out there on the internet for everybody to see. But this technically qualifies as, as a snuff film because his sole purpose for making this was because he knew these people were onto him. He knew it. He was the star of that show. He was they had this whole Facebook group and everything dedicated to trying to catch this guy. And he was absolutely in that group. I don't think it's ever been proven that he was, but he definitely was. When he was arrested at an internet cafe reading articles about himself.
Right.
So, he did this. It wasn't for money. He didn't distribute this for money, but he did it for likes. And
he was like a fake like Instagram model.
He was.
And if he came out today, he'd be a fucking SoundCloud rapper too or some shit.
Well, I mean, this was within the last 10 years. I mean, this was pretty recent. So
yeah, but he was one of these people that's like, I don't know. That's the crazy part too, is that I don't know. Maybe I know a couple people that are just a few notches below him in that level of narcissism when it comes to fucking the internet.
Right.
And it's not that, like, the dude's obviously fucking crazy, but it's very relatable. It's a very good story all around.
Definitely watch Don't Fuck with Cats. A lot of people were nervous about watching it because they don't want to see the cats being. Now they don't show the whole videos. They do.
It's not that bad. Yeah.
There's one when he drowns the cat in the bathtub. That fucked me up. But they didn't show him drown the cat in the bathtub, but they show it pretty much right up until the last moment. So it is hard, but just don't look. Once you see a cat on the screen, just don't look. Wait till the people start talking again, and then you can look.
Right.
But it's worth the watch because it's a fucking crazy ride. These people that helped find this guy and figure out who he was, they're amazing people, and they deserve everything in the world. And
the one chick ain't bad looking. Yeah,
they're fucking. And Pat has a real big crush on the one chick. So if you're, I don't even know her real name. I don't think she ever said her real name. But if you're listening to the show,
well, it's going to be Mrs. O'Sullivan one day.
You stop it.
At least for one night.
So anyway, but yeah, no, the One Lunatic, One Ice Pick video did finally break that mystery. So we had Peter Scully, who kind of broke the red rooms, and now we've got Luca Magnotta, who broke the snuff film virginity at least and made it official. So it's not that these things aren't possible, because they've already happened, and we know that they have. And it's, like I said, horrific shit, and it is sad, and it's hard, and it's heavy to think that we live in a world where this stuff exists. But again, like I said, I don't think that it's on the scale that people that are into this, and that's weird to say that you're into this stuff, but I kind of mentioned, we kind of talked about it in the last episode. I read about this stuff because it helps me coke. It helps me do coke. I read about it because it helps me cope with. I keep saying coke. Obviously,
it's Labor Day weekend, man. It's all right. It's all good. 3-day weekend.
Slip here. It helps me deal with my trauma, and it does. As weird as that sounds, and I can't explain it to you, but being a 2-time child sex trafficking victim, it's some pretty heavy stuff. So, if you're into this stuff and you're into finding the real stories behind it, you'll find out that there is probably a lot more than we know about, I'm sure. It does absolutely happen. It's enough that we need to bring attention to, so that we can have people upset about it. You should get mad about it. You should demand more. We should be demanding that these authority figures that we pay for, do something about this. You should be donating your money to organizations like Thorn, which is actually founded by Ashton Kutcher, who helps child sex trafficking victims. And, you should be doing these things because we don't want this to become normal. We don't want people to become so desensitized to it that it's just like, oh, whatever. And then it just gets worse and worse and worse. Could we ever end up in a world where everybody's just, killing people on the internet for money and molesting kids? And probably not. But, the fact that it's happening at all is not good either. But this stuff is very real. You hear the rumors, and we've even talked about some of those rumors here, and I don't think that red rooms are rampant, but they exist. I don't think that snuff films are rampant, but they exist. And people should know fact from fiction and kind of what the deal is and what's going on. So I don't know, that's how I feel about it. What do you think, Pat?
Yeah, I don't know. I think there's a part of me that really likes to believe that this is all just kind of isolated incident stuff. And then there's a part of me that kind of knows better. You know what I mean?
Sure.
There's a part of me that has watched enough porn on kind of normal websites with like amateur porn with pregnant chicks, where you look at that and you say, what do you think is going to happen? Like, here's a pregnant woman having sex with like a handful of dudes while she's pregnant, and what are the chances that kid is going to grow up and have a normal life? Probably not very good. What are the chances that she's engaged in this ridiculous fucking behavior while she's 9 months pregnant, on some video, some amateur video that showed up on like, X Hamster or something. What are the chances that when that camera turned off, she started taking her prenatal vitamins and that kid was born into a healthy, happy home and spent the rest of his life, playing softball and being in the school band and doing all of it. You know what I mean? Like, what are the chances? Probably not very fucking good. Okay. So like, we know there's a lot of really fucking wacky motherfuckers out there. And we know that for some people, human life is pretty cheap. And if the only thing that keeps kind of this thin veneer of society in place is the fact that the daylight shines on it, or that there's cameras around or something, how hard is it to just go behind closed doors and then suddenly all bets are off, right? Have you ever heard the conspiracy theories about like skeleton farms and other countries and stuff?
No.
So supposedly there's countries, and I'm not going to name which ones because I don't want to be responsible for spreading racism or mistrust or xenophobia. But there's countries that are, a few notches above what you would expect a third world shithole to be, where, human life is very cheap. And there's accusations that in some of these countries, people could basically be born and kept in certain conditions just for kind of organ harvesting.
Yeah, I've heard of this.
Or like skeletons, they, just for
sure,
cadaver labs or whatever, or medical classrooms. And, I don't necessarily know if that's true or not, but this idea that we have in America where every birth is documented and on the radar, and how could a child be born and murdered? How do kids just disappear? How many cases have you heard about women that are kidnapped and then kept in basements, and they have 2 or 3 rape babies from their kidnappers? And
that happens.
That shit happens. So, and that's happened. That happens with fucking hillbillies in the middle of nowhere. Imagine if you had money and you had resources available to you and you had more space, right? All of this stuff is very, 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 very possible. Very possible. These are not huge leaps of logic that we're taking, or that I'm taking to assume that this stuff could happen. I think it very well could. And the size and extent of it, once again, maybe our own paranoia and mistrust and, bloodthirstiness to some level is kind of blowing out of proportion. When QAnon people talk about this, we love to just kind of laugh at them and say, like, you guys are projecting, right? But, I mean, look at this, then you see this stuff. And how far off is this from what they're kind of talking about, right? Now, maybe they don't use the right words, or they don't articulate themselves the right way, but the sentiment, the mistrust of people in power with money and authority, I mean, I get that. And the idea that this kind of projection that they have is that everybody is, there's all these pedophiles, or this cabal, or this underground network, or this, underground pipeline of human trafficking. How much more proof do we need that it exists in some capacity? It does. It 100% fucking does. And, that's not to say that all these Q fucking people were even remotely close to getting it right. But
no, not even close.
But I don't know. That's the thing, is that, like, I don't know. To be able to say that they're nowhere near getting it right, that means that we know what getting it right is. And we don't.
I mean, because again, we, talked about how expensive these videos were that the guy was putting out there. We have a price tag on it. And so we know that people don't don't just have 10 grand laying around and, to throw at something like this. So we know
but you know what, if you're a politician, you do.
Right. Well, right. That's what I'm saying. People don't just have that kind of money laying around just to invest in. I mean, can you imagine spending, just talk about regular porn? Can you imagine every time you watched one porn spending 10 grand on that one porn? No, because I don't have money like that. But I would, that's just not, anyway. So, again, we know kind of the idea of what type of people, we're working with here, but it's not happening. It's not happening at the capacity that people think it is. It's not every single politician and every single, big corporate, business owner or, big pharma or whoever. It's not all these people participating in it. I would say that most people are not I would say most people are not cut that way, to be honest with you. Even some of the rich people are not cut. Well, then again, there's not as many rich people in the world as we'd like to believe either. So that's a different pool we're taken from with a different set of circumstances. But I would say most people in general are not cut that way and don't have a desire to harm people or things like that. Now we do know that regular Joes do it. We know that they do regular Joes. We know that they do partake in these things and victimizing people in whatever capacity. We're very aware that happens every single day, all the time. We have registered sex offenders that have absolutely no money, so obviously they exist in every class. But no, it definitely doesn't happen on the scale that people think it does. It doesn't happen the way that people think it does. I'm not saying that there isn't a baby farm somewhere just cutting out slaves and this, that, and the other. I can't say that for sure, but as someone who was in a Hollywood sex ring, I can say it's not happening the way people think it's happening. It's actually much simpler than that. And, it doesn't need to be that way. But no, I don't think it's like a Q definitely, I don't think got it right.
Well, not to minimize your own experiences, but I mean, whatever you were involved with was what it was. And there could be different experiences out there.
Well, sure. There absolutely could be.
And not to mention other countries and not to mention, I don't know. I mean, we live in a, world where Burger King and McDonald's and Wendy's exists. There's multiple ways to make a hamburger.
Well,
there's got to be multiple ways to traffic a fucking person.
That's why I said I can't say that these things don't happen. It's just that, we can only base what's possible off of things that we know we already have is possible. And then go on an offshoot from there. So we can kind of look at the research and look at, like I said, what we do know and look at those numbers and see it. So like that tells me that because like Peter Scully is really the only person that's ever been caught, and he was caught and convicted. Again, he was caught on something totally different. So if all these big name people were in on it, it sounds like that guy was supplying them, was itching their scratch. Why would the politicians not make sure that he didn't go to jail? It wasn't like it was big news or anything. They could have easily let that guy walk away and they didn't. But again, he's the only example of anything like this. So therefore that just tells me that's a very small pool of people that are into that thing. Obviously there are people that are into it, but it's not as big as, say, when you actually look at child sex trafficking, the ages are typically between the ages of 12 and 17. And that's most of the time what we're looking at. So again, I'm not saying it doesn't happen. I just don't think that it happens as much as people think it does. It does happen, just doesn't happen the way that people think.
I hope to God you're right.
I you know what? At minimum, I would like to think that I'm right, and that's what gets me through the day. So I will run with that.
Yeah, as a parent, like
exactly.
I think, we kind of have to.
Yeah, we do.
Otherwise, we never let our kids leave their house.
But I would like to think that people, for the most part, and I do, and I know a lot of people agree with this, but I do think people, for the most part, are not bad people. There's a lot of bad people that do a lot of bad things. There's a lot of good people that do a lot of bad things. And there are people, like, again, I expressed how I felt about pedophiles, and I just think they don't need to live anymore once they hit that point. It's unforgiven. But I think that most people don't have that need and desire to harm people to that extent. I don't think that that's the norm. All right. Well, there's your conclusion. If you were, curious about these things, it's hard. It's hard to explain these topics when, again, we talked about Peter Scully and a lot of the information just isn't available. But for the most part, we've tried to say what is real and what isn't, as much as we can. But the world's a very, very weird place. So anything is possible, that's for sure. But with that being said, we'll see you guys back here next Wednesday.